Welcome, Yatin. Welcome to Construction World Angles. It's a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us today. I'm going to start with the first and the most obvious thing is that what prompted you to get into architecture?
During our travels, we explored a lot of buildings and architecture, and that's when it all started fascinating me. And my family is, they're all doctors.
Okay.
So I was the black sheep, so to speak. Medicine was not for me.
Right.
So the next calling was architecture.
Architecture.
And
So I read somewhere that you mentioned that your first break was given to you by Sunil Shetty, something you did with some Sobo. Is that Mischief?
yes.
Which he had set up at
Yes.
Breach Candy?
Yes. We actually grew up together in the same building. So, he said, why are you, kind of doing a job? I mean, I already have so many projects to do, and why don't you do them?
What was the early days like in architecture? At that time in 89 when you started as Yatin Patel Associates and then you started DSP with your partners.
So the early journey was obviously we studied architecture, but as a young architect, not many people would give me a building to
Yeah.
design per se. So I started with doing interiors, and thankfully given breaks by friends like Sunil. And we grew to do retail outlets, a few homes that we did, residential interiors. And through those connects and network, we came across to do an office, fairly, at that point of time, decently sized office for Reliance Industries.
Okay.
And there was no looking back from
No
there.
looking back from there. You know, I've read you've written somewhere that, doing residential projects is much more challenging than doing commercial projects, which are, built to suit, to design build projects. You want to kind of expound a bit on that?
The type of work, the projects that we do are large scale. And the project durations are probably 7 years and 8 years and 10 years. The initial brief that is developed may not be relevant during
life of the
the
project.
life of the construction of the project.
Right.
In most projects, there are changes.
One of my questions was just that for design build, you need to be well planned and you need to be planned well in advance on paper so that you can execute. Ultimately, it's a turnkey project, so you're responsible for the timelines and for the end result as well. How does it work when there are so many variables in a country like India?
So all projects undergo some amount of change. Be it a customer asking for a change, the brief may have changed, so therefore there's some additional needs, or business needs may increase or decrease. So especially in commercial real estate and corporate fit outs, which is where we do design build, we document changes and make ourselves extremely nimble in the sense that we're able to adapt and make certain changes.
Right.
The other one is that when you have such a long drawn project, materiality changes. So what you thought of 2.5 years back, you want it to be relevant for the next 10 years.
Correct.
But 2.5 years down the line, there are newer materials, there's newer technologies available.
Right.
That if you're going to design for something that's going to be relevant for that much longer,
Right.
you have that as an opportunity. And as an architect, one never stops really thinking or exploring or whatever. So one really needs to draw the line somewhere.
From the time you started in 89, where probably a lot of it was done on the drawing board, and where we are at today, how much is the reliance today on technology to generate the design, for project management purposes? So what is the role of technology for you?
I remember a time when somebody said that on a large footprint of 40,000 square feet, where it had to be drawn by hand,
Right.
the site dimensions are wrong. It's off by 6 inches. So, which means you had to erase everything, start from scratch, and take a couple of days or probably a week to draw things up now. And now, with simple tools like AutoCAD, or we started working on computers, you just, with a click of a button, you can do that. So, what's happened is you can do much more, much quicker. with much more accuracy. Right. So that's basic change from the drawing board onto shifting to computers. There are software tools that allow you to draw things out three-dimensionally. So as architects, we visualize things in three dimension, but this assists you to even challenge a brief.
Right.
So a lot of tools are now available where we can actually map user patterns, occupancy, and so on and so forth.
So, what was your experience when you first started doing projects abroad? What was the learning?
We're doing work with Tata Housing
Yeah.
extensively. We still are as well. They were doing international projects. So there was this one project in Colombo that they wanted us to work on. So there was a local firm that we worked with to assist us do that.
A lot of companies are being valued on the basis of, corporate governance, and which include, sustainability along with ethics, etc. So what is your clients ask in terms of sustainability, and how do you deliver in terms of sustainability?
Sustainability is extremely important in all of what we do. Customers are mindful of it. We as a firm mandated that within the firm we will design for green. So it's not just orientation of the buildings
Correct.
or structures,
Correct.
but the use of materials, the apt use of materials. So for example, glass, what kind of glass, where to use glass, within buildings, what kind of carpets to use, what kind of insulation to use, and so on and so forth. One which I said was, which we just spoke of, was mapping through technology, which actually translates into conservation of energy. Obviously, the amount of energy one consumes is much lesser.
Any international project that you really admire?
Some of Kalatrava's works are outstanding. Some of Zaha Hadid's works are really outstanding. So no one particular thing. Each one has their own characters and different meanings to it. I think the Hudson Yards development is an extremely dense development in the heart of New York City. That the whole master plan is laid out is extremely nice.
So you've done multiple, your recent projects have been the TomTom, you've done something for Google, you've done Capgemini offices. You have project which is most memorable to you in India as well as abroad?
So I wouldn't want to say any one is my favorite because all my customers are favorites. But the experience that we went through in some of these were quite phenomenal and memorable. So one example that you cited for TomTom. Again, the brief was 1,000 workstations is what we need to shift into a 100,000 square feet office. We actually mapped the way the employees were using their existing infrastructure. So, like I said, technology, behavioral patterns, and all of that. And we realized that at any given point of time, no more than 70% of employees came into the office. We said, first of all, let's have free address. So nobody owns a desk, which is the first step that allows you to optimize your space. And then we said, all the way you work, you need to be a little more agile. So I could sit in my workspace for a few hours to carry out a particular task, focused working as a desk, and then I can shift to another place within the office to collaborate, which is also a work point, or I could shift into a quiet zone and still do absolute heads down work. So we created more choice seating.
Yatin, what advice would you give to young architects today?
For any young architect, I think exposure and experience is extremely crucial and important. There are certain things that we learn in colleges, but real life is completely different. You cannot replace experience with anything.
Correct.
And that one must do that stint, at least. And of course, stay abreast with whatever newer things that are happening because things are changing every day. So I would urge all young budding architects to work at least a minimum of 6 or 7 years at one or probably two firms, and then venture out, if they had to, into doing something on their own.
Your daughters are also following in your footsteps in terms of architecture. Any plans for them, or do they have any plans to join you or join the firm?
So they're both architects. The elder one is working with Paycop Fried and Partners. And the younger one also is working with a company called D-Box that works with architectural firms and developers to market projects.
You're foraying into real estate. You want to tell us something about that?
It happened, I wouldn't say out of choice, but out of more like a hobby. We had some land parcels that we have and own, which I bought over time. Also, fulfill my passion of doing work where I am the client myself.
Right.
So, where I said I'll also involve my daughters to make them, at least make them work and try to work with me
Correct.
on something and see if it works.
Works.
So we started building a few homes in Alibag. We started with 2. We have 6 more on the drawing board, ready to kick off.
Lovely.
So yeah.
And I believe you spent the entire pandemic in Alibag, in your home in Alibag.
Yes, I did. Very well worth it. I wish I could do it again, but minus a pandemic.
Is there some goal in sight?
The drive is to continue to innovate. Every 3 years, we've added on something new. So either a new geography or a location or another service that we offered, or a different vertical that we've started. Just prior to the pandemic, we had 2 major events that happened. So one is we became members of One Global Design, which gave us the global footprint, and we established DSP IB. Now DSP IB is a coming together of DSP along with IB, which is Intelligent Buildings, a firm based out of North Carolina. There are masters and global leaders in providing smart building advisory services across the globe. So we've tied up with them to provide that service in the Indian subcontinent and Far East. So those are 2 new developments that happened just before the pandemic. So every 3 years we had something going, and we had 2 events that happened simultaneously.
So it's quite creditable, the number of things that you're doing, Yatin, because the countries, the geographies, like you said, adding something every 3 years. You've also instituted something in education that you're working with.
Sure. So there's a firm that we incorporated called EDI, Education Design International. It used to be EDA first, and now with the sake of change, it's become EDI now. That firm purely looks after or does work in the education space, and only designs educational institutions.
Right.
Up till now, the huge amount of thrust was in K-12, from kindergarten to the 12th standard schools. But now we've also expanded it to higher education as well. So we started off with the intent of doing work only in India. So that's headquartered in Bangalore. So we've got about 45 people just doing that. We said India is our geography, this is where we will work. But in these last 10 years that we've had EDI, we're now working across probably 35 different countries.
Wow.
We didn't imagine it, but this is how it's
How many people are you right now?
in
the
EDI?
firm?
There are 45, close to about 45. And then there are founders and principals across different geographies, across the globe.
Right. I read somewhere, Yatin, that you had said that, the profession of architecture is not respected as much as it should be, and neither is the emoluments of what you're paid in tune with that. So you want to make some comment on that?
From the time that I started practice 3 decades ago, the respectability of architects was almost like a medical practitioner. Like architect has come and due respect was given, or things were done in that manner. Just respect. Today it's not there. That's not the case anymore. In the commercial real estate space, we used to be the captains of the ship. We're not the captains anymore. We're one part of a big ship now, where there are so many consultants appointed separately. There are cost consultant, there's a project manager, there's a number of people, there's a global real estate team of the client, there's a peer reviewer, and there's all sorts of things, and so we are kind of like hidden somewhere. So in that case, I think that respectability or the importance has really come down considerably. Not in all cases, but by and large, yes.
So, Yatin, any last words you'd like to share with us, which is that we haven't addressed, or anything you'd like to say about the profession, about your experiences, about what you're looking forward to, anything?
I think I'm interested more in technology. It's a game changer. That's what we're looking forward to, and that's how we started DSP IB as well. So we're very closely connected to it already, because we had that as a vision to say that, we want to be associated with something like this, to be able to build and design better spaces for the future.
Thank you so much, Yatin. Thank you so much for coming here and giving us your time and your fabulous insights. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.